story you're about to hear could shake the monarchy at its very core. For years, whispers have circled around Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's children. Whispers that most people brushed off as tabloid noise, too outrageous to be true. But whispers don't fade when the evidence keeps piling up. They grow louder. And now the questions aren't just being asked by gossip columnists, they're backed by documents, government codes, and missing records that don't add up. At the center of it all is one little girl, Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor. To the world, she was born on a warm June day in California, welcomed with smiles, photographs, and headlines that painted her as the living bridge between tradition and modernity. She carried two names with immense weight: Lilibet, the private nickname of the Queen herself, and Diana, the eternal symbol of loss and legacy. Her arrival should have been a fairy tale ending to Harry and Meghan's turbulent departure from royal life. But beneath the polished surface of that announcement lies a storm that has never fully settled. A storm that involves mismatched numbers on a birth certificate, a doctor who vanished from practice days after the birth, and state records that suggest no child by that name was ever born in California at all. One discrepancy might be written off as a clerical error, but 3, 4, 5, at some point, coincidence starts to look like cover-up. And this isn't just about one child's birth. It's about the line of succession to the British crown. Archie stands 6th in line, Lilibet stands 7th. That means these children, on paper, could one day inherit the throne of England. But the rules of succession are strict, and the monarchy demands clarity, absolute proof that every heir was born exactly as claimed. So the question is this: if the paperwork surrounding Lilibet's birth doesn't add up, what does that mean for the future of the royal family itself? Because once you start digging into the records, the fairy tale begins to unravel, and the first threads come loose in the very certificate meant to prove she was born at all. June 4th, 2021 was supposed to be a day of celebration, not controversy. That morning, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry announced the arrival of their second child, a daughter they named Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor. It was the kind of news story that seemed tailor-made to melt even the coldest skeptic. A baby girl, born in sunny California, carrying a name that tied together the two most powerful female figures in Harry's life. Lilibet, a deeply personal nickname used only by Queen Elizabeth's closest family members. Diana, the name of Harry's beloved mother, whose legacy still lingers like an open wound across the monarchy. The announcement carried the kind of symbolism the couple had mastered since stepping away from royal duties. A daughter whose name embodied both continuity and rebellion, tradition and heartbreak. The world embraced the narrative. Newspapers from London to Los Angeles splashed their front pages with the story. A smiling press release from Harry and Meghan confirmed the details. Their little girl had been born healthy at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, just a short drive from the couple's Montecito mansion. Soon after, the first photographs arrived. Harry and Meghan in the grass with Archie and their newborn. All smiles, as if they had escaped the pressures of palace life and found a new peace on American soil. Social media platforms erupted with congratulations. Celebrities posted their blessings. For a moment, it felt like the couple had successfully turned the page on years of controversy and criticism. Everything looked flawless. The date, the name, the location, even a copy of the birth certificate began circulating online, displaying all the familiar boxes checked. To casual observers, it was airtight proof that the fairy tale was real. Another royal baby, born far from the gilded cages of London, yet still linked directly to the crown. But sometimes the details that seem the most ordinary hide the greatest secrets, because buried inside the very certificate meant to confirm Lilibet's birth was a code, a single number that raised the first real question. And once that question was asked, the whole story began to unravel. On the surface, Lilibet Diana's birth certificate looked like any other. It had the right boxes filled in: her full name, her father's name, her mother's name, the date of birth, and the hospital listed as Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. But when investigators looked closer, they noticed something that most people would have missed: a code printed on the certificate. In the United States, every birth certificate carries a unique numerical code. Think of it as the document's fingerprint, a hidden string of numbers that tells you exactly where and when it was issued. In California, that code always starts with 104. It's a rule, consistent across the state. Yet on Lilibet's certificate, the number wasn't 104, it was 105. And here's the bombshell: 105 doesn't belong to California at all. According to government charts, 105 is the code for Colorado, hundreds of miles away from the hospital where Meghan and Harry claimed their daughter was born. This wasn't a minor typo. A misplaced letter or spelling error could be brushed aside. But a state code? That's not supposed to change. It's as if you were issued a passport that said London on the front page but encoded Lisbon in the back. One detail says one thing. The hidden code says something completely different. Which one are you supposed to believe? At first, some thought maybe it was a printing mistake, but others weren't convinced. How could one of the most high-profile births in the world, watched by millions, have such an obvious irregularity go unnoticed by both the hospital and the press? And if it truly was an error, why was it never corrected? That single number, 105, cracked open the door. Because if the certificate was linked to Colorado instead of California, it suggested something deeply unsettling, that the certificate floating in the press might not be authentic at all. And once you start doubting the certificate, the next question becomes unavoidable. What do the official state records actually say about Lilibet's birth? Once the odd number on Lilibet's birth certificate raised suspicion, investigators decided to go straight to the source. If Meghan had truly given birth in California, then the state's own Vital Records Office would have a public record of it. In California, when someone requests a birth certificate, the state issues either a certified copy of the record or an official note that no such record exists. With the Sussex's daughter making international headlines, verifying her birth should have been simple. So a formal request was filed, fees paid, forms submitted, details exact. The reply that came back wasn't just surprising, it was shocking. Instead of providing a birth certificate for Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor, the office issued a certificate of no public record. In plain terms, California was saying there was no birth certificate on file for a baby by that name, born on June 4, 2021 at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. Think about what that means. Newspapers and magazines had already published scans of what looked like her certificate, complete with names, dates, and even Harry's title. Yet when the official state database was checked, it came up empty. A ghost entry. No record found. For many, this was the moment the story stopped being gossip and started becoming a genuine mystery. Either the certificate circulating in the press wasn't real, or there was some level of deliberate sealing and secrecy taking place. And both options raise unsettling questions. Why would a royal baby's birth need to be hidden from the public record? Why wasn't there the same transparency seen for every other child in the line of succession? The strangeness didn't stop there. Observers pointed out another irregularity. The certificate image floating online listed Harry not only by his legal name, Henry Charles Albert David, but also by his royal style, His Royal Highness, Duke of Sussex. Under California law, official documents aren't allowed to carry titles, legal names only, which means that if this certificate was real, it broke the law. And if it wasn't real, then the press had been distributing a doctored document. Either way, the mystery deepened, and the next discovery would make it even more unsettling, because the very doctor tied to Lilibet's birth suddenly vanished from practice altogether. With the numbers and records already looking suspicious, attention turned to the doctor, who was said to have delivered Lilibet Diana. According to reports, the obstetrician on the certificate was Dr. Melissa Drake, a respected physician practicing in California. On paper, her presence should have added credibility to the story. A named doctor, a professional witness to the birth of a child who would be seventh in line to the British throne. But then something unusual happened. Only days after the supposed birth, Dr. Drake announced she was shutting down her practice. In a brief notice to her patients, she explained that she needed to focus on her health and her family. It was framed as a personal decision, something countless doctors have done before. But the timing couldn't have been more unsettling. Why would a doctor walk away from her career so suddenly, right after being linked to one of the most high-profile births in the world? For investigators already suspicious of the certificate codes and missing state records, her disappearance raised a new level of doubt. Was it coincidence? Or was her departure connected to the whispers surrounding Lilibet's birth? The questions only grew louder when people learned that Dr. Drake's husband runs a fertility clinic, a detail that immediately fueled speculation about surrogacy. Could it be that Meghan never carried the child herself, and that alternative medical methods were involved? In most cases, speculation like this would fade away once institutions provided clarity, but clarity never came. The palace didn't step forward with transparency. California's vital records still had nothing on file. And now, the doctor at the center of it all was gone, leaving behind nothing but questions. This is where the stakes begin to skyrocket, because in the royal family, the rules of succession are brutally clear. And if a child's birth doesn't meet those rules, then their claim to the throne is invalid, which means that the whispers about surrogacy or adoption aren't just gossip, they strike at the very heart of monarchy itself. When it comes to royal succession, there's no room for guesswork. For centuries, the British monarchy has relied on strict rules to determine who is eligible to inherit the crown. And while the details may sound old-fashioned, they still hold absolute power today. 4 conditions must be met, and every single one of them is non-negotiable. First, the parents must be legally married. That box is checked. Harry and Meghan had their lavish royal wedding at Windsor Castle in 2018, broadcast to millions around the globe. Second, the marriage must be recognized by the Church of England. Again, check. Their union was fully sanctioned by the Archbishop of Canterbury. But it's the third and fourth requirements where the storm begins to form. Rule 3, the child must be conceived naturally. No surrogates, no adoptions, no third-party arrangements. The monarchy's succession laws demand bloodline purity, at least in the most traditional sense. Rule 4, the child must be born from the body of the mother, and that birth must be officially documented, crystal clear, with signatures, hospital records, and full transparency. Historically, this transparency was taken so seriously that royal births were publicly certified by doctors. For generations, official notices signed by attending physicians were displayed outside Buckingham Palace, so no one could question whether the heir was born exactly as claimed. This ritual wasn't just ceremonial, it was a safeguard, a way of eliminating even the smallest shadow of doubt. But with Harry and Meghan's children, none of this happened. There was no signed medical notice on an easel outside the palace, no transparent verification from doctors tied directly to the crown. Instead, there were glossy announcements, media-friendly photos, and documents riddled with inconsistencies. Which brings us to the heart of the problem. If even one of those 4 royal requirements wasn't fulfilled, or can't be proven with hard evidence, then Archie and Lilibet's places in the line of succession crumble. And the deeper investigators dug, the clearer it became that the rules and the records didn't line up. And that realization only sharpened the next mystery. Why did every path to verification suddenly hit a dead end? By this point, the inconsistencies were stacking up like bricks in a wall. A Colorado code on a California certificate, a state registry declaring no record found, and a doctor who disappeared from practice days after the supposed birth. For most cases, this is where the official institutions would step in to silence rumors once and for all. But when investigators tried to chase down clarity, they didn't find answers. They found locked doors. The first step was a direct phone call to California's Vital Records office. The investigator spent exactly 25 minutes and 45 seconds on the line with a staff member, double-checking the issue of codes. The answer was blunt. California certificates always begin with 104, never 105. In other words, the number on Lilibet's certificate wasn't just suspicious, it was officially wrong. Next, attention turned to the United Kingdom. Since Archie had been born at Portland Hospital in London, the investigator filed a Freedom of Information request to Parliament, asking for verification. The reply was as unhelpful as it was telling. Parliament explained that it wasn't a hospital and therefore couldn't confirm birth details. Instead, they pointed the investigator toward Buckingham Palace. And that's where the trail froze. The palace isn't subject to Freedom of Information laws. They don't have to provide records, even if the public demands them. Which means when the investigator pressed further, there was only silence. No confirmation, no denial, nothing. So on one side, US officials quietly admitted something didn't add up. On the other, UK officials pushed responsibility onto an institution shielded from scrutiny. And right in the middle were 2 children whose royal futures depended entirely on documents no one seemed willing to show. That silence left the public with only speculation. And the deeper people looked, the more obvious it became that there were only 3 explanations for the mess, each one more troubling than the last. With every door closed and every record shrouded in silence, only 3 explanations remain on the table. None of them are simple, and each one carries consequences that could shake the very foundation of the monarchy. The first possibility is the least dramatic, a clerical mistake. Maybe someone in a government office mistyped the code, confusing 104 with 105, and the error slipped through unchecked. But can that really hold weight? We're not talking about the birth of an ordinary child. This was a royal baby, the daughter of a prince, a child destined to be 7th in line to the throne. Every detail should have been scrutinized, verified, and double-checked. To believe it was all just a sloppy oversight is to believe that one of the most watched families in the world allowed their most important paperwork to be riddled with mistakes. The second possibility is far more explosive: surrogacy or adoption. If Meghan did not give birth to Lilibet herself, then the strict royal succession rules requiring natural conception and direct birth from the mother's body would not be met. This theory would explain the vanishing doctor, the missing records, and the silence from both California and the palace. But if true, it would also mean that Lilibet, and potentially even Archie, should not legally be listed in the line of succession at all. The ripple effect of such a revelation would be unprecedented. And then there's the third possibility, the one that casts the darkest shadow, a deliberate cover-up, that the palace, the press, and the institutions involved all knew the records didn't align, but chose to distract the public with surface details. Focus on Harry's royal title being printed on the certificate. Focus on the cute family photos. Anything but the glaring inconsistencies in the official documentation. If even one of these scenarios is true, it means the monarchy is balancing its future on a foundation of uncertainty. And when the stakes involve the crown itself, uncertainty is not just a problem, it's a crisis. So where does this tangled story leave us? We have a birth certificate stamped with the wrong state code, pointing to Colorado instead of California. We have a state registry that returns no record found for the name Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor. We have an obstetrician who disappeared from practice almost immediately after the supposed birth, leaving behind unanswered questions and whispers about her family's ties to fertility treatment. We have a palace shielded from scrutiny, refusing to provide the kind of transparency that was once standard for royal births. And above all, we have succession laws that demand absolute clarity, rules that allow no gray area when it comes to who may inherit the crown. Individually, each of these oddities could be explained away. A typo here, a sealed record there, a doctor stepping back for personal reasons. But together they form a puzzle that refuses to fit, and the fact that this puzzle revolves around the future of the monarchy makes it impossible to ignore. Because this isn't just about a celebrity couple protecting their privacy. This is about whether two children, Archie and Lilibet, are truly eligible to one day sit on the throne of England. Every royal birth before them came with signatures, doctors' names displayed on palace easels, records made public to eliminate even the smallest shadow of doubt. But for Harry and Meghan's children, that shadow has only grown darker with time. The silence from both sides of the Atlantic doesn't erase the questions, it amplifies them. Until those records are verified, until the same level of transparency once demanded of every royal heir is finally applied here, Archie and Lilibet's places in the line of succession will remain under suspicion, and suspicion, once it takes root, doesn't vanish.